told me later, he's like, yeah, there was a dead guy. There was an answering machine. There's a voicemail from you looking for me. Like, I didn't kill him.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. I'm Jessica Heilman, and seated next to me is the one and only Colonel Sanders.
We only need one.
Colonel Sanders. You just like skipped over the fact I called you Colonel Sanders without, I would say you're a younger version of Colonel Sanders.
Of Colonel Sanders.
Yes, those of you who are listening audibly via Buzzsprout, by the way, since this podcast launched in March of 2023, we have had around 3,400 downloads of the Jeff Heilman Project, according to Buzzsprout. So
most of them from Andrew.
Thank you all for listening. The reason why I'm referring to my husband as Colonel Sanders is because at both his job and his home, he's been getting a little shade recently with this massive Brolin-esque goatee thing that he's got on his face. But we wanted to leave it up to you guys. Should he keep it or should it go? Should it stay or should it go now? And if you are listening to us only audibly, go on YouTube and check it out and look at his face. Honey, give us a good view away from the microphone.
Camera one? Which camera?
There you go. Okay. So
yep. This is
what's
my
the
new
verdict?
Friend. I still like it.
Or shave it.
Should we? That would be interesting to do.
Yeah, we're doing a poll.
Should Jeff on it? We could.
Should the next project be clean shaven, Jeff?
An axe for my face. Face axe.
But anyways, the reason why I bring that up today is we're gonna have fun in today's episode. Honey, the kids. You probably aren't as familiar with this term because you're
probably not.
Business guy, and as business guy, I'm around the kids, and there's this term going around called lore. You know what lore is? LORE, lore, like fantasy or. No, it's not a singer. Okay. So when the kids say the lore goes deep, that means the family stories of like somebody, it's like in casual conversation that you'll be with somebody and they're like having a conversation. Oh, for example, oh gosh, who am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking of your buddy Kevin, who was like in casual conversation. Oh yeah, we were having dinner with Jeff Bush that one time, and we were at the presidential inauguration or something like that. And you're like, wait, what? Because you don't even conceptualize that said person who you're sitting across the table sharing chips and guac could also be in proximity of a president or presidential nominee at a $1 billion a plate dinner. Yes. And so it's called lore. Then they tell the story and it's lore and the lore goes deep. The lore is like deep. A shocking, wow. And so I was thinking about that as I was reading, and this is a plug for my mom's book, Life Without Labels. It's available on Amazon. Her name is Pamela Elizabeth. She wrote a book. And in it, I am reading my mom's lore, or the kids' they would refer to that as grandma lore.
Graham's lore.
Yeah, grandma lore. And and I'm familiar with these stories, and she wrote it in the book for public, so I can share them on this platform. But there was the time when she was basically acting like when she was in San Diego, going to San Diego State, and she was more or less a drug mule to Tijuana, and so it went bad. The deal went south because she gave up the drugs, but the people who were supposed to get the drugs didn't get the drugs, and so she didn't have the money or the drugs, and so she basically had to disappear from down there, and she ended up moving away, and thank God they never found her. But that's grandma lore, because my mom is so not even she blonde like me. She loves Jesus like me. That was the woman of the past, right? So I was thinking how fun it would be for this episode if we could think of any kind of stories that of lore of our own, because this podcast is the Jeff Heilman Project, attempting to keep Jeff out of the projects. No, I'm kidding. And in that, like, I know we tell a lot of the same stories on this podcast in the last 4,000 downloads that we've received from our buddies, but I was thinking of stories that we could perhaps share with our kids that would become our lore. And if there's anything that we haven't shared yet, and so I'm going to share one that I know I've never, like, at the actual tale, and that I know I haven't shared with the kids yet. And maybe while I'm talking, maybe you can think of something, or maybe from your parents or something. So everybody who's watching or listening, my upper left tooth is a cap. It's a crown. Thank you, honey, for paying for it most recently to be replaced.
It's all right.
But
Happy to do it.
what happened was I was about Teddy's age. Our Teddy is 12, turning 13. I was probably 11 or 12. And I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was out with my mom and her mom, so 3 girls out. We're going to have a beach day. And so we go to Capitola, which is where we take our kids now. And there's this wall and there's a pier. And we're in Capitola and it's beautiful. It's a little cold. It's crisp. It's California. My mom and her mom are out there on the sand and I'm sitting dry and I'm in the waves and I'm doing all the kid stuff where I'm jumping up and the waves are coming. I'm trying to, run to the shore, run back. Well, I get it into my head to dive in. And I'm thinking, yeah, I love to swim. I'm a swimmer. Let's just do one of those really cool, dive into the ocean. I see other people do it. Let's do it. Well, I dove in head first and I hit my head. I remember hitting my head on the bottom of the sand, and the impact was so hard because I dove head first and I hit my upper jaw crashed into my bottom jaw, and my bottom jaw actually went up at a diagonal and it chipped my front tooth like in half, going long front. So the whole front of my tooth. And I remember
Right off.
I felt in my mouth like, I got a rock in my, I was like, ugh, and I pulled in my mouth and I just threw it into the ocean. And I was just like, God, I hope my mom didn't see me because that was really stupid. I'm told, don't dive into the shallow water, and I grew up around pools. I know this.
Yeah.
Don't dive into shallow water. And so I'm thinking everything's okay. And I'm like, oh, wow, that was, I'm alive. I'm okay. And I get up and I'm like looking at the shore and they're looking back at me and I smile. Instant pain, like heart attack level pain, because anybody who's ever been through this before, when your nerve of your tooth is exposed to air, when the nerve of your tooth is exposed to beach freezing friggin' Santa Cruz beach boardwalk air, everything in my body went through the roof and I panicked, freaked out, ran to the shore, showed my mom. I got a mirror. I felt it with my finger and it's half missing and I lost it. And she's like, I remember my mom saying, so do you want to stay?
I need a doctor.
I was like, no, I don't want to stay. I want to go home. And so I remember them like basically throwing me into the car and we like drove over the 17 straight to the dentist and they began, resuscitating my face and attempting to cover because you got to, there's all. So from that point on, years and years and years and temporary teeth and crowns and like, it became to where I physically need to be sedated at the dentist just to have any work done because it was so traumatic at the time. And so, kids, don't dive in shallow waters. That's the moral of this story. Do not dive in shallow waters. And I felt, for whatever reason, on the podcast for lore, I think I was motivated by reading my mom's book, getting ready to go on her book tour in October, that I needed to share some of my own lore. I mean, I have other stories that I was thinking about. Do you have any story that you can think of either from, like, I know we've never told.
We've already told the scratch
This one's
story.
kind of funny.
Didn't we tell the scratch story?
I think that you should tell the story of what your granddad would do in the cockpit with the air vents and his buddies. Because I know we've never told that one on this podcast, and it's something that should go down in posterity.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a pilot and American Airlines captain, and
super straight-laced, never
By the book.
like by the book. This man, if you look up dependable with his picture in the dictionary right there.
yeah, captain. His name was Meredith Gibson Johnson, M.G. Johnson, but he went by Bud Johnson, Bud or Buddy when he was little, and he was Bud. Everybody called him Bud. My grandma called him Bud.
Granddad
his
Bud.
kids
We called him Bud.
I called him Granddad Bud. Hey,
Yeah.
Granddad Bud. Yeah. He'd pick up, a pound or two of Boston baked beans, which are the hard candy peanut shell, kind of like an M&M, except it's
Is that why you like those toffee beans?
mean,
and
yeah,
I just
I like
now,
them.
Now it
I like
makes
them for a
sense.
variety of reasons,
Now
but
it makes sense.
yeah, they keep you regular. But he would set up the air vents to circulate air in the cockpit, and he'd make sure and polish off, a third of a bag of Boston baked beans, and we're talking like a 2-pound bag for probably 2 or 3 hours prior to takeoff, and then he'd set the air vents in there, and there was a time that he told me he told me that the pilot thought they were having an electrical fire in the cockpit, and he sniffs around and he's trying to figure out where this horrific odor is coming from, wires burning somewhere beneath the panel, and he looks around, and co-pilot turns to him and says, "Bud, did you fart?" He says, "I sincerely hope so." So he would have a good time gassing his
my
co-pilots
gosh.
out, and basically they had just said they couldn't do anything about it, so that was a big joke for him. But God, we used to have the best time.
He was,
He
so
was
so
just
kid so
so much fun.
the granddad lore is this. If
That
you
lore
can
goes deep and
imagine,
it stinks.
that lore goes deep and it stinks. But a fun tidbit for them would be eating a bag of Boston baked
pound of
beans
Boston
and
baked
being
beans from the
locked in
grocery
cockpit
store.
because I mean in the cockpit and
Pretty
your granddad
small.
and they would go far. Like your granddad did the major
Yeah, he's flying across the Atlantic.
Oceans.
Yeah, he'd
And-
take off in LaGuardia and land 11,
Oh my
12
gosh.
hours later in Frankfurt. So
Well, it was fun. The reason why I thought of that story was my friend and I, whom shall remain nameless because she
Yes.
sometimes listens to this podcast,
oh, there you go. Okay.
says that she has a zero tolerance policy for her husband going to bed and gassing it because it's like you're locked in a sarcophagus
I
with
may-
this
I
person.
may or may not
and-
be guilty. of that.
She said like I think it was last night, he came in the
Last
bedroom.
night?
Yeah, we were talking.
Oh, nice.
He came in from outside into the bedroom, climbed in under the covers, and like she described it like ripping a hole in the mattress. That's how it was, right?
Jesus.
And she's like, it didn't bother me that he did that, even though he knows this is like a sensitive. What bothered me most was the fact that he was outside less than a minute and came into the bed and then did it when he could have done it outside and then come in.
So he waited.
So she says that there's a whole process. She says she's got like she's got to light matches. She's got candles. She's got this whole system of like clearing the air when it happens. So for last night, she just picked up her pillows and she went in the other room and she slept in the other room because she just like, and he's like, "What? Where are you going?" And she says, "Well, I don't have time to light 25 matches right now. I'm too tired." So it made me think of the fact that Granddad Bud would have some fun. I mean, I would also think that would probably break some of the monotony after flying over an ocean for 10 hours in a little cockpit. But I can also see, oh my gosh, how irritating that would be to be locked in a room with somebody for that long. So there's some lore. Another story that I know I've never told on this podcast, and I'm attempting to come clean because there really was nothing nefarious about it, even though I had to lie to my kids at the time, although I don't know if it's really lying. But okay, so we had this bird named Mango, right? And it was a parrot. And it was fun. It was a fun friend. My son was, Jeffrey was like, I don't know, 10, 12, 13. He was, and my cousin, bless her heart, she's like, wants to give him this bird. And he's like so excited. And it's like his little buddy.
Where did Mango come from?
From Gaylin, my cousin.
Oh,
it was hers.
That's right.
And these things are like $400. These things are like pretty expensive, right? And it was kind of cute because it would, and it would talk and it would like do little things. But it had like this attachment or disorder or order, whatever, like it formed attached to certain people, and it really liked those people. And so it really liked Jeffrey, and it really liked Grandma Carol, and it really liked me. And you would, put your little finger out, and he would like beak rub, and he was really sweet. He was really cute, except for the fact that he was getting kind of more and more neglected like over time. And these birds are like super smart, and they like super need attention, and they're super clingy. And I had a lot of kids, and so like he began plucking his chest feathers out. And that, okay, a needy bird is one thing. A needy ugly bird is a whole other can of worms.
We have a place for them.
And so I'm like, I'm thinking like, how do I manage this situation where the kids are too young to take care of this thing properly? I've got kids. I can't take care of this thing properly. It's getting kind of more and more neglected. And then Washington came along, and he hated Washington.
Oh,
do you remember that?
I
like
don't remember that.
He like would attack Washington as a baby because for whatever, I think Osh was scared of it. And so it like sensed fear, this parrot. So here we have needy, half naked parrot who does not like this child. And I'm ready to like, So we ended up taking his cage and putting it out in the garage. Now, it wasn't alone all the time. However, because we had a movie thing going on out in the garage, and we would go and we would play in the garage, and we'd see the bird. And
Plus, I worked out there, didn't I?
No, we were using it as a living room at the time, and the bird was in like the living room out there. But like he was out there kind of a lot by itself, and the kids would kind of forget to close the cage, and he was smart enough to know how to push the cage open. And like I would go out there every now and again, and I'd find him like walking around on the ground out there because the kids forgot to close it or whatever. And well, one day we went out there and he wasn't there no more. And I honestly do not know what happened to the bird. I told the kids he flew away.
Well,
and then we ended up going to Sacramento and seeing at the zoo, and they had a whole like conure thing, and we were like, look, it's Mango, but the younger kids were like, they accepted it, they bought it. The older kids were like, yeah, okay, Mango. Mom, that ain't Mango. But no, I still, because I've seen what happens to birds when cats and raccoons and things get at them. I mean, there's feathers everywhere. There was nothing left behind.
I think they just gobbled him like one chomp.
There was like one little feather on the ground. But I mean, I remember growing up, and my cat Boots had gotten a bird pinned in the garage, and it was just everywhere. There was bird everywhere. So I don't know what happened to the bird. I did tell the kids the bird flew away.
Well, the bird did fly away at least once.
I hope
and Jeffrey found him back.
Yeah, we got him. We'd get him down from trees. I mean, we had that bird for a few years.
Yeah.
But so I guess the story that I'm sharing that can go down as lore is the fact that I had lied to them potentially for years that the bird flew away instead of gotten eaten. But there were never any like cats around.
No.
So honestly, I don't know. We never found any remnants of it. It was just one day gone.
There's a bird, and the next day, no
not.
bird.
And so that's my tale of the mango, my mango lore. Have any more stories?
Gosh, the lore goes deep.
The lore goes deep. Like I mean, I think we've told on this podcast about you meeting George Lucas and shaking his hand at
George Lucas, met Kobe Bryant.
Stanford University.
Met Kobe Bryant at Starbucks.
Well, not Stanford University. It was the Stanford Shopping Mall.
Stanford Shopping Center, yeah. George Lucas, Stanford Shopping Center, met Kobe Bryant, met Malcolm Gladwell, met Steve Wozniak, John Chambers, CEO of Cisco. Jay Sharia Lal was my boss. She was CEO of Arista Networks, which is a monster big company.
Did you go to school with anybody famous? Anybody in high school that ended up becoming an actor? Or, I mean, what's his face?
Adam Scott from Parks and Recreation. I met him at the airport because he's from Santa Cruz, so I met him at San Jose Airport.
Steve Young.
I've met Steve Young.
Jerry Rice.
Three or four
you
times.
Almost have his phone number, basically.
Well, I have his son's phone number. I know Jerry, not great, but I recognize him, and I've run into him on the golf course, and I've run into him at restaurants and stuff several times. Jerry's cool. He's he's super chill dude.
And he's teeny. He's like a teeny guy.
I'm a big guy.
I mean, compared to you, he's teeny.
I think he's like 6 foot, but he's really thin. He's like a pterodactyl. That's why he's so fast.
And then that's funny thing. That's another thing, whether it's lore or not. But like, what people don't recognize is that what I've noticed with you, because you're tall, and like kind of your presence is there. We meet so many.
We do meet
either
a lot of
more
athletes.
Celebrities or athletes or something because there's like they're like also big or taller. I don't know. It just seems like there's this magnetic thing.
I have found that I have kind of a disproportionate draw to athletes, and I mean, I didn't do great at it, but I played professional golf for 10 years and played football and tennis and track and stuff in high school, college, tennis. So it's a mindset of competition and
it definitely seems
creativity with your physique and trying to get in great shape and stuff. So, I mean, I was never been in phenomenal shape, but I always played country club sports where you didn't have to be in great shape. But I do get along with athletes really well. I mean, most of our friends are professional athletes or entrepreneurs or immigrants.
CEO level, executive
it's just kind of the mindset
business owners and stuff
that we tend to gravitate toward. But
I have a scar right here on my chin.
Oh yeah,
I had
the
stitches.
cat, right? Was it the
stitches? Have you ever had stitches? I've had stitches.
I don't think so. I should have got stitches.
Did you ever break anything? Have you ever broke
my finger?
Oh, that's right, your finger. Yeah. But that got reset. You didn't have to do a splint.
No, I didn't need a splint. No.
I had stitches on my chin, and I have 3 of them. And I was every summer, Grandma would take me to this local swim cabana club or whatever, and I would do swim lessons because my parents had to work and I had to do something. I wasn't in school, so I would do swim, and then and so I did. Beginning swim, intermediate swim, advanced swim. It got up to diving, but I didn't have enough guts to do diving. So I don't know how Joseph did it, but more power to you, Joe, because I could never do it. I could never go backwards, man. The not seeing what you're going.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, I gotta have control. And so there's free swim, and so I was free swimming, and I thought I would just be so cool. If I could just so I'm jumping off the side and I'm doing all these. I don't know what it is about me and tricks because I keep getting hurt when there's water and it's time to do tricks. So I jump up and I'm twisting and I'm landing in the water, and I'm jumping up and I'm twisting, I'm landing in the water. Well, I didn't jump. What I've learned now is you got to jump out and then do your tricks and land in the water. I didn't jump out. I jumped up. And then I came down, and as I'm twisting, right there on the side of the pool, where the little lip that you climb up, there, hit my chin.
Jeez.
I mean, it was muscle.
Blood
it was
must have
muscle
just
and
been
blood, and
everywhere.
everything was showing because I scraped it against the pool side. And I remember my mom was working, so Grandma was like, I remember the feeling of, if you haven't got
anytime your kids get hurt,
exposed flesh with an ice pack on top of it, or those paper towels from the school that are like actual paper wrapped around an ice thing, and then you put it on. Oh, I know that feeling. And then Grandma had to take me immediately to Kaiser, and I got in there, and they stitched me, and I didn't even cry. The doctor was like, "This child is amazing." She didn't even. I just was like, "Okay, do it," And so I got 3 stitches in my chin, and the doctor was so proud of me. He gave me like a lollipop and was like, "You're amazing." I think Grandma told the story, and he gave me a kiss. He gave me a kiss on my forehead after I was done because I didn't cry or anything. I just took my medicine. I was probably Nessie's age, probably like 6 or 7 years old. And then I had to get the stitches. So that was, so if anybody ever needs to identify my body, in addition to my tattoo, just look at my chin. There's three little
identify your body.
3 little stitches right there. You'll know it's me.
I fell off my bike a couple times pretty bad without pads or helmets or anything, and got pieces of flesh. Like I've got that. That's a hole. That was a hole you could actually see bone in. That somehow, like I didn't get it stitched up. It just healed, I guess. Somehow I didn't die of staph infection.
What about any? We talk so much about entrepreneurship and businesses. But are there any, and we've talked about business loss, but are there any deals or are there any things that have closed that were like Moby Dick, like never should have happened, but you closed it anyway? And it was just some amazing moment of divine connection to where, you just stacked enough wins that it ended up being something loreable, like that you left the company and they're still talking about that deal that Jeff closed.
Well, I don't think people spend that much time talking about my deals closing necessarily. But,
you might not think it, but
there were a couple. The first one that comes to mind was the VMware deal. I was working for Intel. We were selling a product that competed against Layer 7. Layer 7's the chip leader in the space now, I think, or one of them. And the customer had money to buy Layer 7. They wanted to buy Layer 7. All the engineers were friends with the pre-sales engineer for Layer 7. They had done a proof of concept with Layer 7 the year before, and they didn't have budget. And the next year they had budget and a compelling event. They had a bunch of developers.
And they had a proven test case. It sounds like they used
test case, and we're going with Layer 7. And this guy, Udana, I'll never forget his first name. His last name I don't remember, but his first name was Udana. This guy at named Udana, is working for VMware, and he says, I think we should look for an alternative because we should just look. And their product was a software as a service, and it looked great. Our product was Eclipse, and it looked like crap. And nobody wanted our stuff. And I have another buddy of mine that has a podcast that was kind of the main antagonist to this whole thing. So we've got 15 months of we're going to buy Layer 7, we're going to buy Layer 7, we're going to buy Layer 7. A missed opportunity the year before to buy Layer 7 because they didn't have budget. A missed opportunity to buy Layer 7 this year because it took them a while to get budget. They built this friendship with this pre-sales engineer at Layer 7, and the pre-sales engineer had won over all the engineering team and the VP of engineering. And now they had budget, and they had a compelling event because they had a publicly announced go live for all these developer tools that were going to open up thousands and thousands of VMware developers in order to go and make stuff for their platform. And so they're going to go buy Layer 7. And this one guy, Udana, says, and another guy named Joe Fagani, he and I are still buddies, said, I think we should look at somebody else. Let's take a look at Intel. And they take a look at Intel, and in 2 weeks, we were able to get a deal that was the biggest deal in company history signed.
Well, was it just your magnetic personality? Like, what do you think happened to the...
No, I found out what the black swan was for the deal. And the black swan, for anybody that's studied Chris Voss, the black swan is the one thing about the deal that if you knew, and a lot of times the customers know and they won't tell you, every once in a while you'll just find out by dumb luck. And in this case, I found out by dumb luck. what the black swan was. And the black swan was that I was working for Intel, which had acquired a company called ESG, the Enterprise Service Gateway, which is an API gateway. This is before we acquired Mashery, actually, which was a beautiful SaaS Layer 7 competitor, which we would later sell to GE for 10 times the size of the VMware deal. But VMware had an arch enemy. The arch enemy was Computer Associates. Computer Associates.
Hey, you worked for them.
Computer Associates was VMware's arch enemy because Computer Associates was all about mainframe management software. And VMware was all about being the death to mainframes, which was CA's whole business. So VMware comes and has one of the strongest IPOs in history. And CA's stock starts to tank, and then they start to lose market share, and it just gets really ugly. So CA hated VMware. And the only reason I knew that is because I had just come from CA before I'd worked for Intel. So I knew what this political situation was. And it was one of those things to where it was, you know, you put so much pressure and energy and focus on the deal. And then you got to go drink a beer, smoke a joint, play golf, get a massage, go to sleep, anything to let your mind come down. And when you're doing that, if you get relaxed, a lot of times your subconscious will come unlocked and you'll find the path. And I was like, I remember waking up in the middle of the proof of concept going, CA hates VMware. Now, why is this relevant? Because while we were doing the proof of concept, Layer 7 made the public announcement that CA was going to buy them. And Intel had a guy working 3 levels up from me who was best friends from the newly appointed CEO of VMware, Pat Gelsinger, who was cube mates with our guy, Boyd Davis, at Intel for 20 years. And so I'm like, there's no way they can win this deal as long as the information gets to Pat Gelsinger that they're about to write $1 million check to a company that hates their guts and wants them to burn in hell for destroying their business. That's you know, you have a conflict of interest in the wrong way. Like there's no way they're going to get the service out of them that they really should get because they're diametrically opposed to VMware's success. And we're Intel, and Pat Gelsinger had been working at Intel right up until he took the CEO job at VMware. So there was a deeply vested interest in Intel's success because VMware, although VMware made it possible for Intel to use fewer Intel chips, Intel just doubled down on virtualization, and they're like, we'll just make better, faster chips, and we'll make it to where nobody will want to buy anybody else's chips but us. And VMware actually exploded the Intel's business. So Intel had a vested interest in VMware's success. CA had a vested interest in VMware's failure. And because we had the ties at the top of the organization, one phone call was made, and a guy called me, panicked, and then we hired the SE from Layer 7 to come to work for us.
Well, Madeline and I have been binging House on Disney Plus. We love it. And, you know, he gets to every episode, there's a compelling event or a black swan, I guess, like where they come to the situation where the patient has been lying or withholding information. And so in order for him to successfully diagnose and the end of the episode to come smoothly, you know, and House gets his man or gets his verdict or gets his diagnosis, a compelling event has had to happen. A black swan has been revealed. The lie has become uncovered. And then you have like the last 10 minutes. So for, you know, 40 minutes of the episode, they're trying to diagnose, trying to get to the truth, trying to find out, trying to find what you always call the key decision maker, trying to get to the key decision maker, and then the inception point happens, the truth is revealed, the whatever it is, and then the last 10 minutes, it's just like super fast. It's like super fast, super easy once that point happens and once that comes to a fruition. So it's cool. It's cool to hear you talking about this story as far as in business and how quickly things escalated to close within 2 weeks once you found the black swan or the once you got into the reveal of the truth. So do you think that a part of your success as a sales and entrepreneur and a salesperson is that your ability to get that truth uncovered as like you are actually hunting for the truth, it seems like, in your deals. You need all of the information to come to surface.
I can't speak to my success. I'm a vested interest, right? Or it's a conflict of interest. So I'll let the history books talk about that piece of it. What I can tell you, my philosophy is that I want to understand what the deal looks like from the customer's point of view. Because if I can understand what the deal looks like from the customer's point of view, then I know whether we've got a deal or not. And if we don't have a deal, I'm sorry, what was your name again? Like, I don't have the bandwidth to remember somebody's name if we don't have a deal, because there's nothing for me to do to help them. I'll put them on my mailing list and we'll talk in 6 months or a year. But if we do have a deal, then it doesn't really matter to me what the customer's thinking at that moment, because I feel like I can win them over eventually. And that's usually, and I'll give you an example. There was another deal we did where I knew what the black swan was before I even met the customer, because I knew who the competitor was. And I cold called this guy, and I'm pretty sure I've told this story before, but I cold called this guy who was he's probably retired by now, but he was the vice provost of IT for Arizona State University. And in that world, as goes Arizona State, so goes NAU, U of A, and all the junior colleges in the state of Arizona. This one guy was the kingpin for all of the IT decisions. And so I cold called Jack Shue starting in December and January and February and March and April. And May, he calls me back and he says, we had an all hands meeting at 4:00 every day, going through all the pipeline and deals and stuff, which, by the way, daily cadence call update on all the calls is a big deal. And it was 3:58 in the afternoon, which is 5:00 quitting time in Arizona. And I see this phone number come up, 602 area code. I'm like, it's Jack Shue. He's finally calling me back. I've been calling this guy for 6 months. And I mean, calling and calling.
I know your
and
persistence.
calling and calling. I left voicemails for him. I left voicemails for his assistant. I left voicemails for his colleagues. I left voicemails for his colleagues' assistants. Literally found out later there was a dead guy in his apartment found. There's a voicemail on his machine. Jeff Heilman looking for Jack Shue. Some dead dude. Police line, do not cross. Jack Shue there.
Now that's a moment of lore.
It's true. It's a true story. He told me later, he's like, yeah, there was a dead guy. There was an answering machine. There's a voicemail from you looking for me. Like, I didn't kill him. So he finally calls me back. And by this point, I had total belief in our solution of what we were doing. And I knew how to kill all the other competitors. I was very, very good at selling this particular product. And it was my job, right? I did 80 deals that year from cold calling without a household brand behind me into a higher ed space based entirely on my acumen of ability to deliver content to people around a problem statement that I knew that they had once we found the sweet spot for product market fit. And so I see this phone ringing, the old Nortel phones, right? Little bird chirp. And I took a breath. Hi, this is Jeff. Hello, is this Jeff Heilman? I remember he's kind of this gruff, kind of lumberjack sounded dude. I said, yeah, this is Jeff. This sounds like Jack Shue. He says, yep, that's right. I said, Jack, I've been trying to reach you. He says, I know. and he was nice. He was a super nice guy. And he said, listen, I just put in the purchase order request into procurement, and we're going with Cisco. And this was on a Tuesday afternoon at 4. I remember it was Tuesday, 4:00. This is one of the first experiences with frame control before I really knew what frame control was. And he goes, I just want to let you know, we've been working on this for months. We're going with Cisco. And I said, well, how long does it take for the purchase order request to go through? He said, we should have it by Friday. We'll turn the purchase over to Cisco on Monday. And he says, so I need you to quit calling me. And he didn't. I joked about him getting a restraining order. He didn't actually say that. But he says, I need you to quit calling me and quit calling my team. And I said, Jack, if you give me 15 seconds of why I'm calling, I promise you I will never call you again. As long as you give me 15 seconds, and then you can tell me where to go from there. And he goes, go ahead. He was
defeated.
He was so defeated because he'd been dodging me for months. And now I'm going to get him. And so I gave him 15 seconds. And I said, Jack, first of all, I want you to know, no hard feelings. And I also want you to know it's not your fault that you don't know that Cisco will be impossible to deploy on your college campus at Arizona State, NAU, and U of A. And that's not your fault. It's not Cisco's fault that they don't know that. It's simply a function of the methodology that you've got. And I wanted to make sure you knew that before you spent $1.2 million on a solution that costs 4 times more for something that will never get deployed, ever, in your environment, than what we do, which would go up in a weekend. And I said, how close to the mark am I on that, Jack? He says, what are you talking about? And I said, well, Cisco's product is called the CSA agent. It came from the Okina acquisition they made last year, and it's designed for corporate networks where you own the devices because you have to put an agent on that device, which means you need admin rights on that laptop. And not only do you not have ownership over the laptops of the students that are infecting your network, but you don't own the machines. So you'll never be able to push an agent out, which means you have an agent-based solution that the kids will never adopt. And I hear him on the phone. He goes, shit, like just like that on the phone, because he knew.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew what the killer app was. I knew but again, I mean, I'd made 15,000 phone calls that year.
Yeah.
So I'd had, at that point, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300 conversations with customers. I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So he goes, how soon do you think you can get down here? I said, we can be on a plane tomorrow morning. He says, I got a conference call with NAU, U of A, and Arizona State. Now, keep in mind, a video conference bridge in 2004 did not exist without main T1 lines. There were like 65 people on that call.
Yeah.
And we flew down there and gave a presentation. I didn't go. It was Jason Johnson did that deal. And he flew down there, found the opportunity to pitch it, showed him what we were doing. And he put a stop order on the purchase order request the next day, which would have been Thursday. A friend that I later got to know that I worked with as head of sales at ExcelOps named Greg Kellogg, who was part of Iman Lee's startup that got acquired before ExcelOps. When she got acquired by Cisco, Greg Kellogg was there. So he came back for a short time as VP of sales. Greg Kellogg was the SC on that deal. And he had it committed to close for $1.2 million and was going to make his number in a fat bonus check. And I stole it from him with less than 48 hours. And the deal we did was about $400,000. But my commission check on that was like 25 grand, which keep in mind, $25,000 commission check is not that big a deal unless you'd only been in a job for 5 months, which was the single best paying job you'd ever been in. And that $25,000 commission check was equivalent to more money than I had made in any previous year. And it came in a single check. It came in July, and I made like $56,000 in July in commissions. And I was like, this is twice as much in a month as I used to make in a year. And I'm an inside sales rep just booking appointments. Like, what the hell is happening right now? So that deal was the biggest deal in company history. It took away a deal from Cisco. It let the board know who we were and put us on the roadmap. And then Cisco bought the company about 60 days later.
Yeah, they weren't having that. They weren't going to let that go again.
So I'm not saying that deal caused the acquisition, but it was definitely one of the reference customers they wanted to talk to. And then Cisco bought our 20-person company for about $80 million.
But I love the fact that just like in house, you knew you knew the symptom, you knew the cure. And as long as there was an injured patient, as long as there was somebody,
Then I
as
could
long as
add
you knew
some
the
kind of
cure,
value to the
until
two.
it was too late, you didn't let go until it was
Yeah, and
until the end,
when I
until the
met
final.
Malcolm Gladwell, and we heard him do his keynote speech in Las Vegas at the 2017 Black Hat. It was either Black Hat or Okta. Okina. It was Okta's show. Octane, I think it was called. Oktane. Octane. He talked with us about disagreeableness and how important disagreeableness is to success for these outliers. Disagreeableness is not popular, by the way. But there's a theme of trying to do what's right for the business, or trying to do what's right for the patient, or trying to do what's right for humanity. In the case of the doctor he uses as an example that comes up with the 4-part chemical cocktail that makes chemotherapy so effective today, it was basically using it on kids that were dying anyway. And he's like, for F's sake, they're dead anyway. And the board's like, you don't understand. We can't take that much risk. And he's like, I'm not the board.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the parents and ask them if I can try this stuff on their kid and see if it's going to make them sick. We know that, but it also could cure them. And he was the guy that figured out modern day chemotherapy, which has saved literally millions and millions of lives. But he was a horse's ass, a tough Jewish dude from Brooklyn, New York, I think, and just didn't give a rat's ass what anybody thought. And he got sick and tired of watching kids die, and parents and doctors alike are just helpless. So he's like, I'm going to do something. And this tough old bird was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to tell the parents where it really is. Where it really is when you hit stage 4, they're going to die. Maybe they'll live a little longer. Maybe they'll live a little better. Probably they're not gonna, but we got to try something. And I think this can work. Do you want us to try? Sign here and we'll try, because they're dead already. And that's how I look at, what's it going to hurt me to make a call for Boyd Davis to call Pat Gelsinger on a deal that's dead already? Layer 7's going to walk in and steal this money from me. Or I can turn, as I love Captain Kirk in Star Trek, in the Genesis one, I think maybe Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. He was upset because the Enterprise ended up burning up, right? And they get deserted on the Genesis planet. And Bones is like, you turn death into a fighting chance to live. And that's what I feel like some of these deals, they're dead anyway.
It kind of reminds me of, and this is maybe more lore for our own family, but in the house that we're living in now, is we rent.
Yeah.
We've been here for almost 10 years.
10 years.
But I remember getting to a point, and I think it really speaks to the older you get, the less you want to waste time. And you don't want to do the dance anymore. And I remember going to the landlords and looking basically flat in the eye to eye saying, our credit sucks. We have 6 kids. We have a dog. We have like just being honest and upfront right away.
I had just gotten my job at IBM.
Right away. You've only had a job, like he's only been
2
working
weeks.
at this company for 3. It's like we get to the point to where you just want to rip the Band-Aid off immediately when you're meeting somebody and doing business
and by the way,
for the
we're
first
not
time.
going to pay what you're asking.
Exactly, and we can't pay what you're asking.
Can't.
This is what we could pay. This is what we could see offering. So we gave him an offer. We told him upfront everything before, like we revealed all of the truth, so that when they went to go do the credit check, they would see, they were telling the truth.
But I also told them, we rented our last house for 8 years.
Exactly.
We don't want to move. I don't want to move now, except the landlord's rough. He's raising the rent. There's rats in the house, and we have 6 kids, and we're on top of each other.
1,000 square feet.
And I finally got a new job, and you have a beautiful home, and we'd like to live here.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, thanks very much for
And we didn't hear from him for like 3 weeks. What we'd found out is they were interviewing other people, and every other, it didn't fit. Like it was like a couple with 7 dogs, and then there was
a construction dude that's never home.
Yeah, exactly. And so they felt compelled to at least, I don't know if it was.
What he told me is he knew that married couples with kids tended to be a little less transient, and he was in the business of finding. So we actually were discriminated for.
This time.
This time we were discriminated for. They won't rent us an apartment. You cannot rent a 3-bedroom apartment to somebody with 7 kids. So we're literally priced out of possibility in the marketplace in the state of California. but they can rent us a 4-bedroom house. And
but if we can encourage anybody through Jeff's stories of as he's becoming up in more executive level in sales and getting to the, getting through the uncomfortableness to the straightaway being almost semi-disagreeable, being in front of this is what, this is being transparent. Let's be transparent because we don't want to waste time. Because I would so much tell me now. Tell me, when you and I met immediately, I'm not going to marry anybody. I'm not going to date anybody. I want to get married. It was like there was an immediate, I want to get started in something. I want to get started in marriage. I want to get started in this house. I want to get started in this deal. Yeah. And the quickest way to getting success, it would appear, would be transparent, be open, and then just let the chips fall where they may lay. And if he would have said no, then we would have just found another house. If your deal didn't go through, you would have just closed another deal. And it seems like the younger you are, the more friendly you try to be, the more you're more interested in the foreplay and the dancing around something. But it has appeared to me, the older we get, the more direct we've become, and I could see how it can come off as like, wow, these successful people are so bossy, they're so demanding. It's like, well, no, we're just cutting out all of the fat and we're getting straight to the point and straight to the meat because we don't want to waste time, and we feel like our time is not running short, but it is something different to be 50 and to look at your next 50 and be able to
we even get 50.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
we might have 10. We don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
But we spend a lot of time working, a lot of time trying to deliver on these projects. And it's a wonderful life.
It's a wonderful life
to be alive.
I want to hear some of your lore, friends. If you've got any comments, stories, how deep does your lore? Do you have? I'm a daughter of the American Revolution, so I guess my lore goes way, 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 way back. But what about you? What's going on? Where's your Moby Dicks out there that you've caught?
That's right.
It's the 50th reunion anniversary of Jaws.
Of Jaws, okay.
Of Jaws. So that's a
nice.
That's a milestone.
Thanks for being
2025
with us here on the Jeff Heilman Project, everybody.
Thank you, guys. We look forward to seeing you next time.
We're entertained.
Yes.
Cheers.
God bless.